Hi guys, we'll be starting in just a minute.
Hello everyone. Am I audible clearly?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So, a great evening, everyone. Hope you are doing well. So, ACM IGDTU brings to you ACM Hour of Code week, in which we promote computer science amongst our peers, juniors, and enthusiasts like you to explore this amazing world of CS. Right? Without further delay, let's talk a bit about the administrative issues. The first is that towards the end of the session, we'll be circulating a Google form, right? The people who fill the form will be actually getting the certificates as well as all the resources that we'll be sharing. The second part is that we plan to keep the session interactive. So if you guys are willing, please volunteer to answer questions that are asked, right? So without any further delay, let me share my screen and start deep learning concepts. Please let me know, is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Great. Okay. So in today's hour of code, we shall be unleashing the mystical world of deep learning, and you will gain insights about a super awesome library called fast.ai. Okay. So without further delay, I request you all to please open your browsers and log in to these skills are literally the top list in demand skills at the moment. If you do not believe me, I have a special guest with us and he shall be proving my point.
So many robotics, medicine, and everything in between. You'll learn from the veterans of this field and how you can build some of these incredible algorithms. In fact, this entire speech and video are not real and were created using deep learning and artificial intelligence. And in this class, you'll learn how. It has been an honor to speak with you today, and I hope you enjoy the course.
Hi everybody, and welcome to MIT 6S191.
Amazing, right? So that's the power of DL and AI, right? So finally, let's move forward and discuss the agenda of today's session. First, we'll be dealing with what is exactly the difference between AI, ML, and DL. We'll talk about history. We'll talk about the working theory of DL. We'll also talk about the analogy with human brain. Next, we'll talk about neural nets, the need for deep learning, DL frameworks and library, the applications of DL, and next we'll talk about the limitations that we have in DL, definitely the resources for you, how to get started, and a super cool discussion on the library fast.ai. If time permits, we'll also have a debate. Finally, raise your hands if you have been confused between these three terms, AI, ML, and DL. My buddies, you can lower them down. I can't really see them, right? Let's talk about AI first. AI is a broader concept. As the name suggests, intelligence is something we associate with humans. Okay. Like humans can read, humans can decide, humans can take decisions. Similarly, artificial intelligence can be thought of as, enabling human intelligence to machines. So whenever a machine completes tasks that are based on algorithms, such an intelligent behavior is what we call artificial intelligence. Now, we divide artificial intelligence learning into three parts. The first is your artificial narrow intelligence, in which what happens is that it refers to the AI systems that can perform only a specific task, like autonomously like a human. But these machines cannot do anything more than what they have been programmed to do, right? So that is why it has a narrow scope. The examples include AlphaGo. Google's DeepMind's AlphaGo system won the most complicated game that was ever invented, and it was actually able to beat Lee Sedol, who was 18 times world champion straight, 4 out of 5 times. This concept is not new. Back in 1997, IBM's Deep Blue was the first computer to beat human beings in chess, right? So you see that these computers or these machines are limited in scope. They are good at performing a certain task. The second, we come to artificial general intelligence, which is like when your AI machines can learn, practice, and perceive the functions just the way humans do it. Your examples include your virtual bots and your, say, Siri, etc. The next is an interesting one, which is your artificial superintelligence. And this is a concept where your computer capabilities, will be surpassing the human abilities. That means आपका जो computer होगा, वो human से ज़्यादा अच्छा perform करने लग जाएगा. This is definitely a hypothetical situation, but we still have examples like Sophia the robot. And did I mention this amazing man, Hiroshi Ishiguro? He actually made his own RoboCopy. And if you guys want to learn more about it, you have links to these and you can refer to them in the resources. Now let's move on to machine learning part, which is like an interesting one. And machine learning, let's get to the root words. Machine learning, making the machine learn by, say, themselves and predicting the outcomes. So in simple words, as I've written, that machine learning is all about learning from the past, applying it in the present, and predicting the future. We have covered the machine learning part extensively in previous session yesterday. So I'll just like to brief you about one concept, which is your no free lunch theorem. So what happens is that usually in ML, if you guys have worked, we have to try and evaluate using different models. Now, ever thought why we have to do that? So the reason is illustrated by this theorem, no free lunch theorem, which actually states that no one model can work best for every problem. The reason is, the point is, the assumptions for one great model may not be the same for another. That is the reason we have to try multiple models to find out the one that suits us the best. So I hope the AI part and the ML part are finally clear to you, right? Finally, let's move on to the topic of the day, deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning where you have something called artificial neural networks, and these algorithms are inspired by brain, and they learn from large amounts of data. If you see the deep learning concept, it actually mimics the workings of human brains. The way our human brains process data for use in detecting objects, recognizing speech, translating, your speech recognition, and finally taking decisions, right? So I have a question for you. Ever thought why deep learning has a word called deep in it? Are there any volunteers who would like to answer this question? I'll wait for like 10 seconds. Do we have any volunteers who would like to answer this question? Why we are using the word deep?
It consists of various of projects, process them to encounter the result. That's why.
Yeah, a part of it is correct. Any other explanation if anyone would like to give?
Maybe it works out how the machine recognizes the machine learning algorithms.
That's also a good point. So in simple words, I'll just give you the point that usually deep is considered, associated with something that's complicated. Just please mention, is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So, usually deep is something we associate with something that's, complicated or secretive. So the 2 points that my fellows have mentioned are correct. But you also have something that in deep learning, we have the concept of hidden layers, which actually do the processing. We'll understand this better using the animations, right? So thank you for volunteering. Let's briefly about history, right? So CR, the concept of deep learning is not new. It dates back to 1940s where people were actually formulating or creating models like for neural networks using mathematics and algorithms, right? But can anyone volunteer now that why now it's happening that this field is gaining so much momentum?
Due
I'll
to
again
large
wait for like
due to large volume of data,
hmm?
due to large volume of data available and machine power.
Great. So yes, that summarizes exactly the point. Your first point is software, which is like, deep learning algorithms are hungry for data. जितना आप data उन्हें provide करोगे, they are really great at giving you accuracies. But in past, we didn't have really great huge amounts of data like you have ImageNet data set, right? Today we have good data sets and plus we can generate them as well, right? So that's the reason why this field is gaining momentum. The second point you mentioned was that processing, that is your hardware concept. So now these algorithms, because they are very computationally expensive, they require like great infrastructure, GPUs, processing unit. So past may hardware was not that much good, but now we have great solutions to that. So these are 2 basic reasons why this field now is gaining momentum. I hope this is clear to you guys.
Yes.
Thank you. So now, quickly let's move towards the similarity between neurons and neural network. Have you ever wondered why is it called neural network? So the reason is because deep learning algorithms are inspired by human brains. In human brains, we have a concept, we have something called neuron. Okay. In the neural networks, again, we have something called neurons. Now, what these neurons do, these neurons take an input signal, they process it like the CPU, and they pass this output through a cable-like structure, which is called channel, to the other connected neurons, right? So this is how a neuron would work, which is your basic processing core unit. Okay. Now let's talk about how exactly these neurons work. I'll give you like 3 seconds to read this meme, or let me read it for you. So Albert Einstein in his statement says that insanity is in doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But machine learning is all about this. So it sounds cool, right? Now you are seeing this and hearing this meme. Okay. Now our sense organs send the visual and the sound information to your brain. Brain will now receive this information and will decide whether you have to laugh or you don't have to laugh. Now this decision is taken up by a set of neurons, and each neuron will get activated when, say, a specific criteria is met. In reality, the picture is not that simple. We have like 10 to the power 11, or you can say 100 billion neurons working parallelly, interconnected, to actually decide whether you have to laugh or not. Okay? So in simple words, what you can say is that your sense organs pass this information to your first lower layers. Okay? Then the neurons process it, and the output of the process is passed on to the next layer in a hierarchical manner. In this, some neurons will fire and some won't, and this process goes on until it results in a final response. See, I'll use a laser point to explain you. For example, this is your first neuron. It will activate when your visual is funny. This is your second neuron. It will activate when your speech is funny. The third is activated when your text is funny. For example, we have something called threshold value. Now it says that laugh if 2 out of 3 neurons are activated. So you can see that 3 are activated. So the final output would be laughter. You must be wondering why I am, emphasizing on this, how brain works, because this is the exact concept how neural networks, the neurons work, right? So I hope this part is clear to you guys. Please give me a yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, so now I have an animation to show you guys. Please let me know if the animation is working nicely. Okay.
Let's understand basically how neural networks work. Say we have 3 different shapes. Basically, neural networks have neurons, which are actually the core processing unit. The first layer is actually your input layer. The last layer is actually your output layer, which predicts our final output. In between, we have hidden layers, which are responsible for computations, like feature extraction. Let's take this example of a circle, which is basically of 28 plus 28 pixels, making it 784 pixels. Now, each 784 pixels will be fed into neurons, and these neurons are connected to the next layer by channels, right? And these channels have an associated numerical value called weights with them. Now, these inputs are multiplied by these weights, and their sum is sent as input to the next layer. Also, each neuron is connected to a numerical value called bias, and which is added to their sum. This input is basically fed into activation functions, which is responsible for deciding whether the neuron will be fired or activated or not. And if it's activated, then these neurons will transfer the data to the next layer, and this way the data flows. This is what we call forward propagation. Okay. Now what happens in the output layer is that the neuron with the highest value determines the output. These are basically probabilities that whether the shape is square, a circle, or a triangle. And in our case, the model has predicted the shape as square, which is definitely a wrong prediction, right? So now what do we do? So basically, this output is actually fed or compared with the actual outcome, and we have to minimize the deviation. This information will be actually transferred backwards, which is what we call backward propagation, and then the weights will be adjusted accordingly. And this forward and back propagation will actually be performed iteratively till our model is able to correctly predict the outcome of our shape, which is circle.
So guys, did you understand how neural networks actually work? Please give me a yes. If you have any doubts, I can play the video again and explain it in my words again. Just give me a yes or a no.
Yeah, the chat says it's clear.
Great. So let's move forward. This is just the theory part of whatever I have, discussed in the video, right? And now let's talk about neural nets. Basically, neural nets, we have really options like CNN, RNN, GANs. We'll focus on CNNs and RNNs for today's tutorial, right? So CNNs basically stand for convolution neural network. This is a concept, or this is a deep neural network which was designed for image analysis. And we have like two basic concepts called convolution and pooling. Now, what happens is that in convolution, we are actually moving our convolution over pixels. Okay. If you're not understanding it, no problem. The point is that whenever we're analyzing a picture, we are actually finding or extracting features out of it. The convolution layer is responsible for that, right? Then we also have a concept of pooling, which is responsible for reducing the dimensions. Great. We'll just cover it superficially, and let's understand this through a simple example. See, for example, you have to recognize a face. Okay. Now, just as we discussed that in neural networks, we have layers, right, of neurons. The first layer, which is your basic layer, will actually focus on extracting the low level features like your edges and corners. You can say this layer, right? The second layer will form feature groups, that is your nose or mouth or eyes. Okay. The third layer or advanced layers will now be able to detect high level objects like faces, etc. Right? So this is how the concept of CNN works. This is very simply I have put. The underlying principle is a bit complex. Now let's talk about RNNs. This is like an application you must be aware of. So you must be wondering how the Google's autocomplete works, right? How you just type something and you get options. So the underlying principle is basically your recurrent neural network, which is like what happens is that Google has a collection of large volumes of most frequently occurring consecutive words. Like you have Las Vegas, Los Angeles, New Jersey, San Francisco, right? Now, this data is actually fed into the recurrent neural network. Now, this network will actually analyze the data by finding sequences of words which actually occur together or frequently together, like we just discussed San Francisco, right? And then it will predict the next word. So, like, what is the best food to eat?
You're not audible.
Amandeep, I think you disconnected, or you have poor network.
Hi guys, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Where did you lose me?
When you were talking about how Google search engine work.
Okay.
How does
Nita,
it automate?
okay, I'll
Like-
just repeat. I'll just repeat once again, right?
Yeah,
My screen is visible, right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how Google engine works? This is an application you must be aware of, right? So what happens is that Google has this collection of large volumes of most frequently occurring consecutive words. Now, examples include like San Francisco, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, right? Now, this database will be actually fed into this recurrent neural network. This network will analyze, okay, the data by finding sequences of words occurring frequently together, like San Francisco. So, अगर आप San लिखोगे तो Francisco अपने आप आपको suggestions में आ जाएगा. This is the same concept. So when you write what is the best food to eat in Las Vegas, right? So it will auto complete it as Vegas. Okay. So, and forgot to mention that definitely Las Vegas is known for its fine dining. Now let's talk about the need for DL. So deep learning, one word is actually accuracy. So DL algorithms have been achieving higher accuracies than their other algorithm counterparts. The reason is that with increase in data, the performance of deep learning algorithms also increases, right? So that is the reason your accuracy is a great factor. Now let's talk about the confusion between ML or DL. When you should use ML, when you should use DL, right? So the foremost thing is when your data is large, when your data is huge, then you can go for deep learning algorithms. If your data is like small, so you should prefer your traditional machine learning algorithms, right? The second concept is that deep learning techniques need to have high-end infrastructure. We just discussed that hardware components काफी अच्छे चाहिए होते हैं इन्हें. Plus, they actually require time for modeling the data. Like it can range from a few hours to a few weeks. Personally, I have experiences of training my data on 20 plus hours, right? So the third point is when you are lacking feature extraction knowledge, right? Then deep learning techniques can come handy, because in deep learning, you don't really have to do feature extraction, because that is what deep learning algorithms do, okay, in the computational part. The last point is that deep learning is really shining because it's able to come up with solutions to complex problems like image classification, natural language processing, and speech recognition. And there's a huge road that is need to be paved even now, right? Now let's talk about the deep learning frameworks and libraries. Okay, so you must have heard of TensorFlow, which is Google's framework. Then you have PyTorch, you have Torch, and a very specific cool library, fast.ai, which we'll be discussing today as well. Briefly talking about the applications, right? So your applications range from your Google Google Home to your Amazon Alexa. Then your chatbots and virtual assistants are actually based on this concept. Even the recommendation systems of your YouTube, Netflix, and say Spotify are basically based on this underlying principle. Okay. Not to mention the driverless or driverless cars that you have that actually have the underlying principle as deep learning and specifically computer vision, right? Then deep learning is paving paths for a lot of development in healthcare sector, like detection of tumors to predicting the prescribing medicines based on your medical data. These all things are being done. Then you have something called face recognition, which is a great application. And even you can play around with images, which is your picture colorization or filtering and these kind of stuff. So these are just some applications that I have listed, right? Finally, let's talk about the limitations. Everything has its pros and cons. And the biggest consequence of deep learning is your data set availability. If you have a great data set, then your performance will be great. But if you do not have a great data set or huge data set, your performance may suffer from personal experiences, I'm telling you. The second part is definitely your hardware. You require good GPUs. You require good high-end infrastructure. Let's talk about the third and the fourth limitations, which are really interesting, because the first is basically your bias. Remember, we added a bias element. So since the models learn by data, if the data is biased, then your results will be biased. So we need to make sure that our data set is diverse. If you guys want to read the solutions, how we can make the data diverse or how to remove bias, I have included the link to it. Okay. Let's finally talk about the fourth limitation, which is an interesting one. And let me cite an example for you guys. So back in 2017, a strange self-driving car was released in New Jersey. Now, definitely it's awesome. Like we are seeing a driverless car driving on roads. But the point was that that car didn't follow even one instruction that was given by the programmer who was, controlling it. Instead, it relied on an algorithm that was taught to itself by actually seeing how humans drive. It's impressive when you're talking about the technical part of it, but morally, what if something unexpected happens? Even the engineers who designed it were not sure why this machine is behaving like this. So this black box concept in AI and deep learning is something which is a big limitation. And this field is really a research field. And if you guys want to take up research, you can work on this field as well. Finally, let's talk about the resources. So you have like great resources. If you want to do a course, please go ahead with this Coursera course on deep learning by Andrew Ng. It's an awesome course. And Mr. Barack Obama has already given you introduction and advised you for taking up this MIT course. If you want to work on computer vision, the Stanford course is great. And you can also refer to blogs like MIT's Technology Review is a great blog, right? And towards AI, towards data science, these are great blogs to work on and brush up your knowledge. So with this, actually, I would like to conclude introduction to deep learning. If you guys want to connect with me, you have these handles of mine and you guys can connect with me. So with this, I would like to hand over the stage to Muskan to take you further with the topic of introduction to fast.ai.
Yeah, that was a great session. Thank you, Amandeep.
Great.